Hi there, guys, and welcome to another episode of Two Halves and Two Innings Football Podcast. Our podcast today is sponsored by Davis Optometrists. So if you're looking for any eye care needs, such as dry macular degeneration treatment and IPL for dry eyes, then please do have a look at Davis Optometrists and what services they can offer. The description is below the video. So, guys, another off-topic episode because of international break. You know, we've all kind of got bored of waiting for our respective Premier League teams to get back in. So we wanted to discuss about certain managers in the Premier League and who we thought has been very influential. Myself and Amit being, Man United fans, we've got the diehard Sir Alex Ferguson support, and Rohit, who's an Arsenal fan, will obviously like to discuss about Arsène Wenger. Because in light of Pep's 1,000th game in charge, and I think having a percentage win of 72%, he does rank highest after 1,000 games of the manager with the most number of wins. So it'd be quite interesting to compare the managers and see who we feel has been the most influential and probably who's settled the debate. Who's the best manager? Is it Pep, Sir Alex, Klopp, Wenger, Jose? So we're going to dive that straight into there. So Amit, should we start with you first? You want to give a little case on, how do you feel about Pep Guardiola coming into the Premier League, managing Man City and his impact?
There's no doubt that Pep is a very talented manager. There's no doubt about that. And again, there's no doubt about the style of football that he plays has always been very entertaining, very attractive. But the one thing I will say is that Barcelona, he didn't build a club or rebuild a club. Bayern Munich, he didn't really have to do that either. Man City, they'd already won the league with Mancini when he came along. So again, he didn't really have to do that. And he hasn't stayed. This is the longest he's ever stayed in a managerial role. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, listeners or boys. So I think if you're going to do short bursts, which is what Jose always does, I think it's always easier to, and I don't say that lightly. On paper, it's easier to kind of create that winning mentality or winning mindset than it is to kind of do it over 20, 30, 20 years or so. We had the likes of Arsene Wenger at Arsenal and obviously Sir Alex Ferguson did at Manchester United. So Arsene and Sir Alex actually had a very similar win percentage, around about 58%. And Klopp has got about 60. You could even argue that Jurgen Klopp's probably, again, in Mainz, his first team, they were nowhere. And then, he brought them high success in terms of getting them into the Bundesliga. And Dortmund, he brought many successes back to them as well. So, and Liverpool, he got them back on the perch, so to speak, with Manchester United. So it's always going to be a difficult one. And I think fans of various clubs will always say that, their manager's potentially the best. But generally for me, I do think that Sir Alex is the greatest of all time. When I started following football from 1990, I think just because of the consistency over the years he's been there, he's probably developed four or redeveloped four winning teams, over that 20-year period. He's had to deal with changes in personalities, the influence of social media, the influence of finances into the game. When he came, it was a very big drinking culture. Then he changed that culture, and then the Premier League came. So all of a sudden, there's a big influx of money coming into the Premier League, and then the issues with David Beckham's celebrity status of footballers. He changed that. Social media era. So he was always constantly reinventing himself. The one thing I'll say is that he did build the club back from the ground to the top, but I don't think he left the club in a great position, because if he did, then I don't think they would be in the mess they are. But that's probably the only black mark I would say against his tenure. But other than that, for me, he is the greatest of all time.
The greatest, so even greater than the big man, Sir Alex?
No, Sir Alex is the greatest.
Sir Alex.
Oh, sorry, I misheard you there. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, there's no denying, Pep's influence. Obviously, we've spoken at length about it on the podcast, about his style of play, how he's influenced the Premier League. Rohit, your take on obviously Pep and maybe any kind of similarities or contrast differences between him and your favorite Wenger?
Yeah, I know he's been a great, if you see as stats, he's been one of the greatest managers, right? But it's all about the influence he's had with the players as well. There's nothing, stats can tell us one thing, but what can tell us is that how he improved players, what changes he made to the system as well, and to his surrounding and the environment and the league and the whole thing, right? Did he bring something new to the clubs or to the game? This is where I always believe, Arsene, when he started, he did a lot of changes. He brought a lot of changes in the team, like even drinking culture, like you said. He made players better. He wasn't just a manager, he was a coach. He was there I can understand. I think he was like Pep. Like Pep was like him, if I should say. He was more of a coach, like one-to-one coaching. When Sir Alex was more of a manager, where he was looking after the whole thing. He had brilliant
Yeah.
coaches with him to coach the players one-to-one, but he was more on the manager level to say, okay, what the strategy should be, how are we gonna play, what are we gonna do. But to improve players, they were more on the coaches who were working one-to-one with the players. With Pep and Wenger, they were more like coaches, one-to-one coaches. And his record of 57.25% win percentage is not bad, but then if you see, that is still after the last 10 years of his tenure wasn't that good. He lost so many games in the last 10 years of his tenure because of money, because of all the things. We had to let go of many great players like Nasri, like Van Persie, the Fabregas, Adebayor as well. There were a lot of players who left because we could not buy. We didn't have money to buy players. So he still got team into Champions League. And it's not easy. You can see now, it's not easy to get into Champions League top four. So I do believe he had more of an influence in the culture side of the things. Pep had a different kind of influence in the team, but then both had their own thing. Both are brilliant, and all four of them, five of them, we're gonna talk about. In Klopp and Jose nowadays is not. He's even losing every game kind of way. You can see what could happen. This is why Sir Alex was brilliant in the terms. He changed his approach because he was a manager, he wasn't a one-to-one coach. So he could change as a manager. Okay, I want to do this. I want to do this. Yeah.
No, certainly.
I want back Wenger. I think again, as well as the culture, he also he brought, because he was about Grand Pass 8 in Japan before he joined Arsenal. So I think the diet as well. I remember.
Yep.
All of a sudden, his introduction, and there was a big focus on diet with the Arsenal team, and then the others seemed to kind of follow that trend, and naturally it just became that thing after, the norm after that, really. So I suppose you can say that he added more professionalism into the professional game, in terms of it's not just about what you're doing on the pitch, it's about what you're doing to the body when you're not on the pitch, because ultimately you're only on the pitch for back then he was only in the pitch for 90 minutes. Now it's like 120, but it's twice or three times a week, 90 minutes. But for the other kind of 4 or 5, the other times, the other hours of the day, it's about how you're looking after your body. And I think Arsene really changed that from what my memory is saying.
And to be honest, only his last 10 years has been really difficult. Like I said, there were many reasons. It wasn't that he was bad. It's just that his hands were tied, too tight.
Yeah.
So
and obviously you had the new stadium, and I think what you had with Highbury was a rock solid fortress, and I think whether you call it superstition, whether you call it a bit of it was Emirates, I think you lost a little bit of that fear factor sometimes, like you said, with the new stadium, and we were talking about it previously, even with Tottenham's new stadium. Sometimes with White Hart Lane or the other previous stadiums, they have that history, they have that kind of ability. So Highbury, was a game, when United used to play Arsenal. Look how fierce that rivalry was, and obviously we'll look at that and say the biggest rivalry in the English Premier League is either Man United Liverpool or Man United Arsenal, certainly in the Premier League eras. And then obviously nowadays everyone's saying it's the Liverpool and City rivalry, the Klopp versus Pep. We have to look at Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp obviously managed 1,080 games and has a win percentage of 54. And really pushed City to great lengths. I mean, it was City the only team in the 17 and 18 season to score 100 points. The only Premier League team to ever do that. So that takes some feat, and they're averaging about 2.5 goals a game. I think Pep has definitely kind of made a machine of City. Whether or not it was done by legal means, I mean, there's still 115 charges on there, but and obviously a billionaire kind of Middle Eastern money. That's, I think that for me personally, that would be my only kind of thing between Sir Alex Ferguson and Pep, is that if you would have given the tools that Fergie had and the kind of environment that he started with the young lads of the class of '92, and I know Rohit mentioned about Fergie being a manager, but he was more than that. He was a dad to a few of these players. He was like a father figure, especially to like Ronaldo, to the likes of like the Neville brothers, and teaching them more so just like make sure outside of football you look after yourself, stay away from trouble. And he was mentoring. He was a mentor in that respect. Pep is a tactical genius. He mentored like the likes of obviously Arteta, who you've got now, and kind of instilled more of a this is how I want you to play. Very kind of very clinician almost, in a way, like everything has to be perfect, exact. Fergie was like, looking, if you play your heart out and you play for me, I'll trust you as well.
But this is where Wenger was as well, right? He actually we feel as fans sometime end of his years he trusted his players too much. He let them play even after bad games as well. But if you see, he is. I'm just reading a record of Arsene Wenger just in Premier League. His team scored 1.86 goals per Premier League game, and that's a good.
So not the 1-0 to the Arsenal chant. Maybe 1.86 to the Arsenal.
Right. So, but this is his game was very attacking. His game was like to control. Yeah. And then I was listening to Alex Chamberlain's. Oxlade Chamberlain's podcast, and he was saying in the later years, he said they never used to have analysts. Arsene Wenger's idea was to just focus on our game, how we want to play, how we want to control. And when Mikel came in, he actually said, no, enough. We need analysts. We need to know how other teams are playing. And then they brought analysts, and they brought analysts into the Arsenal system. But before that, they never had analysts to analyze other teams, how they play. And Mourinho was totally opposite. He wanted to know how other teams are playing so he can set up his team. And maybe, I think this is where he at the end of his tenure, he maybe lacked. But even then, he had 59 point. What was it? 50. What was his thingy? Yeah,
57.
57. Yeah.
58. Him and Alex about the same.
So same. In Klopp got only 54% of his win. You can see, even people ridiculed him. Even people can imagine how people actually made joke of him, Arsene Wenger, at the end of his last 6-7 years. But man was a genius, guys. He played beautiful game. His win percentage is amazing, better than Klopp in the league, in the English leagues. I mean, what else do you want to win? He won 3 plus 3.
Do you not think his downfall was that he didn't win as many trophies? That's probably what his stain on his legacy was, that the lack of trophy. I think he won 10 major trophies. What, seven leagues?
And 3 leagues and 7 FA Cups. Yeah.
Oh, 3 leagues and 7 FA Cups. So
it was just the problem that he came against Barcelona in the Champions League final, and obviously you were playing against a referee that game.
Exactly. That was a bad game. We should have. I mean, I still can't believe how we lost that game. But anyway, let's not go on that. But
that's what it was.
But if you see, that time United versus Arsenal was the rivalry, and that is still for me is the rivalry. You can see the hatred between players. You can see that when they go on the pitch, they want to win, and I love that. This is what the games are about. And I understand Klopp versus Pep was a rivalry, different kind of rivalry, but you want to see some kind of like India Pakistan. You want to win that game no matter what. This is how it was at that time. And it wasn't easy to win a Premier League then.
So, I mean, I suppose, again, it's the length of time. If you look at how long Sir Alex and Arsene Wenger were battling it out for the Premier League, how often in that time period, 12, 13 years or so or whatever, did they come first or second respectively? Yeah. If you compare that to the amount of time that Pep and obviously Jurgen Klopp wasn't at Liverpool that long, but if you compare that to how Klopp and Pep were fighting, and how many times did they come 1 and 2? It's but again, people always forget about the past, and then, as I just said last time, those oldies like us, we look at the past with rose-tinted specs and everything as well. So there's always.
I mean, young bloods like me now are thinking that the biggest rivalry is like Man U versus Brentford now. We need to we're down at Man U versus Tottenham now. That's the rivalry, to be fair, after that Europa game. But like you said, I think it kind of works in the context of which managers came in at that time. When we looked at when Jose was brought in and the amount of arrogance he had, calling himself a special one. He came from from Porto. I think it was a Porto, wasn't it?
Porto.
But remember, just won the Champions League.
Won a Champions League. Came with Chelsea, and then obviously you look at Chelsea and how big they blew up then, and obviously winning a title.
Because the investment.
Then Arsenal went down, and then the kind of new rivalry was between Sir Alex and Jose. It was a Man U versus Chelsea. Yeah. So that rivalry came quite big. Obviously,
is that because Sir Alex saw himself as the Godfather? Hang on, I'm the king of this castle, as in the Premier League castle. You're the young blood, because he still beat him. He didn't have the money as Jose came, and that's why I said, you know, his adaptability to kind of times and different pressures was admirable. The thing,
I think
there's no doubt.
United did get a lot of good buys then, you know, a lot of expensive buys.
No, we spent money.
Rooney,
We did not spend money.
Berbatov. Yeah, we did. You guys did spend money.
You know, we
but
bought
the thing is,
Veron for 40. You know, back in the day, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot now, but back in the day, 30, 40 million was a lot of money.
Yeah, British transfer record fees for, like, I think Rio Ferdinand and
Rio Ferdinand,
yeah. So we bought well, though. We bought smart, and I think that was a transfer policy. They did very well. Like, you know, Berbatov from Tottenham, Michael Carrick from Tottenham, Rio Ferdinand from Leeds. And these were really good. I mean, we had even like Alex Smith, you know, random, you know, kind of signings which, you know, did well in certain games, you know, but might have been looked over. So we did well because a lot of players at that time when they played for United bled tooth and nail for them. You know, nowadays, you know, they want to put on the shirt. They, you know, 80, 90 million transfers, or like Jadon Sancho for 73 million. Like, they're not really putting the heart out all that much right now. But maybe for like somebody like Pep, he expects any transfer to be playing at his level. Otherwise, he's happy to let them go. You know, you looked at like Alvarez. He could have kept Alvarez as a secondary striker to Haaland, but he said, "Look, you're not happy with me. I'm not happy with you. Okay, fine." Perfect. He's happy to play with a small squad. He's like, I need 15, 16 players. Fine, I'll play with that. So he's very cutthroat. But like you said, with the Liverpool and obviously with Klopp and Pep, I think naturally it just gravitated that rivalry because obviously Liverpool were the only team pushing Man City at that particular time. You know, Man United had fallen off quite badly. Arsenal as well, you know, were building under Arteta at the early stages or under Emery at that time. So there wasn't really anybody else. And Chelsea were kind of a bit of a disarray. Jose came back, didn't really do much. And then there were different managers coming in every other season. So it was naturally going to gravitate between Liverpool and Man City anyway. So, but it was, you know, they do say interesting was that one of the best technical games played was between Man City and Liverpool, I think, a few seasons ago. And apparently that was like the best, you know, football game ever recorded. So there's got to be some kind of weigh-in in that. And these two managers have obviously been very good at that period of time. And obviously with Klopp as well, I think he totally revitalized Liverpool in a way after Brendan Rodgers. Like, for them, that's been fantastic. And obviously that's continuing now with Slot. Obviously they've had a bit of a dip recently, but I think Klopp has had such a massive impact on Liverpool, even like the likes of like Kenny Dalglish and previous managers in the past. So, you know, what are you kind of thinking now, maybe moving away from the managers of the past who've been great? What about the managers now in the firing line to be sacked and who have not been performing well? You know, we've seen Wolves sack their manager, and I know we talked about it in the podcast a lot earlier, who we thought would get sacked, and I know our predictions probably were a lot different. But, you know, with Nottingham Forest sacking their manager, who do you think in the current Premier League climate now might be in a bit of pressure and a bit of the firing line? If you know, Rohit, do you wanna maybe say who do you think might be in the firing line next?
Oh my God, it's a tough one, this one. We already got Anje sacked. I don't know who else is going to be. Yeah, then Wolves manager, I think he got sacked as well. This I was thinking. To be honest, I don't think anyone will get sacked now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rohit.
Well, interestingly, I was just looking at some like you know, bets and odds, you know, kind of seeing like who's the next manager. So they were saying the Leeds manager, I think, is Daniel Farke.
No, I think they will keep him.
That's it. Yeah. So he's in line. But I think an interesting one is maybe we've not really talked so much about this team, or they've been kind of under the radar, is Fulham and Marco Silva. So there's you know, maybe if you feel like a team of that caliber where they should be kind of mid-table at least minimum, because they play some good football, but if they kind of creep towards the relegation zone, it could be maybe stressful for somebody like Marco Silva to kind of keep his job. And even like the likes of Newcastle, if they're not, you know, the amount of investment that they've had, especially with their ownership, if Eddie Howe is not performing well and, you know, losing the likes of Isak and not having their, you know, summer signings do well like Wissa and Elanga, you know, maybe that could be another option as well. So it's interesting when I just looked at the odds to kind of see who's the next manager, because they're not wrong usually. They're not usually wrong, to be fair. You know, kind of, yeah. An interesting one is 16-1 for Arne's Slot to get sacked too.
Really?
And I know, Rohit, you just said that you would started getting into betting, didn't you? You said, which apps do we use? So, yeah, maybe Paddy Power's got a good offer at the moment for new users.
I'm going to put that £10 bet on Arne's Slot.
I mean, if you think about it, Sean Dyche, Thomas Frank, Nuno Espirito Santo, Oliver Glasner have a better odds than Arne's Slot to get sacked. And I don't know if this is true, but I was looking on Instagram, and sometimes, you know, with AI nowadays, you can't tell if it's true or not. There was something that was saying that the English news report was saying that even Ten Hag has been approached by Liverpool. Now, that made my day, but I know that's probably the fake news of this century. But can you imagine if that happened? Oh my God, I think
there is no no way he's coming back to the Premier League.
Heads would melt. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. Yeah, maybe it might not be until maybe Christmas or after January that we see another sacking, because it's it's a bit difficult now for teams to kind of appoint anyone new. I mean, we saw with Ruben Amorim coming in November and the year that he's had. I mean, a quick question that I'll ask you, obviously, as a United fan, and it's been talked about in other podcasts that I've been listening to. Has Ruben Amorim made United any better after Ten Hag in the year that he's been here?
On the pitch?
Yeah, just in general, has he made United better?
Well, on the pitch, you'd say no, because look at his kind of win percentage. But again, off the pitch, behind the scenes, and again, we can't really say that with full confidence because we're not behind the scenes. So it appears that, as we've kind of alluded to in previous podcasts, he's got the support of the hierarchy. He's obviously making changes back within the team and behind the scenes. That is he doing a Sir Alex and building the club? No, I don't think he's going to be there for 20 years. I think he'd be lucky to see out his contract, if I'm honest. But I'll be loved to be proven wrong. But so in terms of on the pitch, no. Behind the scenes, it appears to be so. He's getting rid of the dead wood, or the perceived dead wood.
Yeah, right. As a neutral, you probably don't really care if he's doing you probably want him to make United worse, which he probably has done at the beginning of at the end of last season. What's your take on Ruben Amorim? Has he made United better?
I don't think he made it better. I think he's trying to change something, and with the leaders, like we discussed in one of our podcasts, I think he's trying to put his influence. And if you see his journey so far, you can see now, since the recent 3-4 games, I could see tiny difference in how team is playing for him. Earlier, maybe the team wasn't taken his suggestions into account, I think. This is my feeling, because if you see his tactics, players probably were confused, right? And the way of his handling Menu and others, he was thinking of, Garnacho and everyone. It's going to take time, guys, like we discussed in our previous chats as well, and in the group as well. So it's going to take time, but I think I can see he's, like when someone joins new, he is still like kind of, people don't trust that person straight away. Sometime you need to work together, and then suddenly when the leaders say, yes, the guy is with you guys for 100%, at least for next 3 years, that put more trust in the team as well.
Yeah.
Okay, the guy is there. So I do believe he will come good. I just think it will take time, and you guys need to be patient with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what I'll say is we did like a little exercise at work, and it was quite interesting actually. So it had the word respect on the front, and on the back of the paper, it had 3 descriptions of what you need to do. Sorry, it was said reward. Yeah. And on the flip side, it had 3 words that said, in order to achieve the reward, this is what you need to be. So you need to have respect, you need to be resilient, and you need to have responsibility. So, and I think now, obviously, what we alluded to with like Jim Radcliffe saying about, him staying for 2 years, I think for the players, then that's given him the respect because they know now he's in for a period of time. Unless everything goes absolutely horribly wrong, they need to have that respect. And players have kind of said, yeah, you know what, we're quite happy with him. And he's a very likable character. And then the second is resilience. Now, Amit, you alluded to this before. In the Tottenham game and in the Forest game, we came back from a 2-1 to make it 2-2. Now, previous United in a few years ago would have maybe lost 3-1 to like that situation.
A few weeks ago, or even years ago.
Well, if we look at previous managers, if we look at it from like 10, because we're just debating on how Amorim is like for 12 months, under Ten Hag, or maybe, we would have lost that. And even like at the Brighton game, we were 3-2 at one point. We could have made that 3-3, but luckily we got a 4-2. So I think the resilience aspect of United, we're getting a bit more resilient. So there's tiny improvements there. And then I think that comes down to, again, the third bit, which is responsibility. I think Bruno understands the responsibility, but players around him now as well, like De Ligt, the goalkeeper, the attackers, they kind of know now there's a bit more responsibility on them. So I think there are some small improvements that are happening. But again, we've got a long way to go before we reach the likes of Arteta and being there for 5 years and getting £1 billion to spend. We'll get there soon. Under Amorim.
This is I'm saying, it's gonna take a time. It's gonna take a little bit of time for you guys. It's such a big club, right? We discussed. I mean, our previous guest Alex mentioned as well. United is biggest club in the world, and then the pressure is different. Even the pressure at Arsene was different for Emery. And look how Emery is playing at Villa, because there is no pressure to win the league. It's just pressure to be a top 4. They didn't even get to top 4 last year, but still there was no pressure for him to be sacked. And everyone is going on the bandwagon how good he is. He's brilliant, but there's a different pressure at certain clubs that
Yeah.
you have to deal
No,
with.
it's true.
You know,
It's
so-
very true.
And if you look at how many mid-table managers
Yeah.
go to the top
Go to top
clubs
clubs.
and they fail. So
Fail.
if you look at kind of just again, we've been talking about Sir Alex. So when Sir Alex chose allegedly David Moyes to take him over, he was the chosen one. That was all the
Yeah.
social media kind of memes or whatever, everything,
best,
banners,
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
He didn't last very long, or did he? And so it's that high performing mindset. It's okay to be not. I'm not saying they were average at their club. They did perform above and beyond what their clubs were. But as you said, the expectations of their club are very
Yeah.
different to kind of being
Very
a manager of Arsenal, Chelsea. Only Man City now, but historically it was Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool. Historic. So that kind of expectations of the club, the fans, the owners, the city. That weighs, and that's why a lot of players, when they come to big clubs, they can't. Again, just like with managers, they can't perform because the weight of the shirt or weight of expectations is too much.
Yeah.
On paper, it should be a natural fit. Many times, but it just doesn't work out.
Doesn't work out because the context is different, right? The pressure is totally different where they're
Expectations.
And
You
you-
can't get
you-
away with being a 7 out of 10. You got to be 8, 9 out of 10 week in, week out. You've got, again, if you look at kind of, Manchester United again, it's the most followed football club in the world. It sells newspapers even now, or sells media even now, being so awful on the pitch. But just because that brand is so powerful and so appealing, it's such pressure.
Yeah, and I'm glad they're taking Mikel's example. I think this is how a club should behave as well, right? Give the guys a little bit of chance as well, especially the young guys. If they're putting their thought in, their stamp in, they need some time to put their stamp in. But they need to be very, very clear on their strategy. They need to be very clear how they're going to execute the strategy. They need to be very clear the execution plan as well to get the confidence of the board, to get the confidence of the leaders within the organization to say, yeah, now we understand there is a clarity. You don't want to go in boardroom and waffle something, oh, we will do this, we will do this, we will do this. No, you have to have a proper strategy. I think this is why Mikel won the argument with Kroenke, is to say, listen, what I'm doing is this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to plan. This is the 5-year strategy. This is how I'm going to execute.
And then he said, what happens if it doesn't work out? And Arteta said, don't worry, I've got a puppy called Win. That will definitely work on the training ground.
he put the responsibility on the owners as well. You need to invest. Without this, I can't do anything. I'm giving you the strategy. I'm giving you the plan, but you need to invest that money.
Yeah, you need the materials, innit? If you're going to build a house, you need the materials. You need something, innit? Exactly, yeah.
Also, when you're employing a young manager, so both in the case of Arteta, that was his first full-time role, and also Ruben Amorim. Yes, it wasn't his first time role, but he is very, he's only just turned 40. What you know at 40 and what you know at 45, what you know at 50.
Big difference.
I mean, don't get me wrong. You can still be. Jose was obviously amazing at a very young age. Okay, he hasn't adapted from that young age, which I think that's why he's a good manager. That's why I wouldn't personally classify him as a great manager. I think he's still doing cut and paste wherever he goes. He's just trying to do the same thing, cut and paste. He's rigid in his style, and he's not adapting at all whatsoever. So I think that's his downfall from him really to be classified to be called a great. So in my mind, when I see, if I was to recruit a young manager in my business, I see it as to lead a team. One of my practices. Age I don't take as an issue. So what I'm looking for in that is that what's their attitude like? Have they got good values? And secondly, sometimes I would see as an opportunity where I can mold them and maybe that's what the owners are thinking about, that they, again, United have now got a better structure than they did prior to Amorim coming on. They've got, since Ineos came in, they've got obviously Jason Wilcox, they've got all the names now, but they've got that Omar, the guy from Man City. So they've got this structure. They've got Dave Brailsford. So this is a guy of marginal gains, high winning mentality. Amorim himself has got a better structure where he's going to be exposed to people who've come from high performing cultures. So notably in this case, Man City, so successful cultures, and he hopefully they'll be thinking, okay, well, we can help mold him, and with his values and whatever he's going to bring on the pitch, then together it should be a match made in heaven. And obviously that doesn't always work out like that, okay? But you've seen that where there's good flexibility between the owner and the coach, as with Arsenal, then it appears that it can be successful.
Cool. Good discussion, guys. I'm loving it. We can probably go too deep into it, Ajay.
Well, I don't want to too deep into it, but yeah, no, certainly. I think you both have made some excellent points on the managers, and obviously with international break, Rohit, the only complaint that I think you've got is your players seem to get injured on these international breaks. So we're going to talk quickly about the international. So Thomas Tuchel been doing a fantastic job with England, and they've been doing really well in the group stages. What are your guys' thoughts on one of the comments he made about obviously Kane or Bellingham and Foden not being able to play in the same team? But I think they were playing together on this in this game.
Together today. Yeah,
they played well. They played wicked. They played amazing. So it's a bit of an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, did he mean anything by that, or was he just basically trying to find out himself who's the best 11, or what was that kind of comment?
No, I think he was giving them a little bit of what do you call it?
Clickbait or something.
Clickbait. No, I think it was more for the players to show him that they can play together. He was giving them some, squeaky bum time, to say, guys, I'm telling you this. You can't play together. Show me now how you can prove him wrong. Show me how you can play together. But then again, when I watched the game,
is it Albania?
Today, yeah, it's Albania only. And then plus, I didn't see anything that gives me hope of England winning the World Cup, because Spain too good. France too good, Argentina too good. I didn't see anything today that we can say like, yes, we can win the World Cup. Unfortunately,
we've got to stages in European competitions, and obviously the World Cup. We've got into semi-finals, we've gotten into finals, and Southgate. It was funny when Alex said this. He said, maybe he said something about a manager. He said maybe he's the man before the man, and that really stuck with me. Sometimes when you have managers where they just do so well, but they just don't get to that final line. And I think maybe with Southgate we just had that little bit where it was he took us to semis, he took us to finals, but he just did not get us over that line.
But
could somebody like Thomas Tuchel, who's proven to won the Champions League, is he like a good tournament manager that he could do something like for England?
Ajay, I get what they were saying, the man before the man, but sometimes I feel like thing Gareth did, no one else did it before. To go into 100%. 3 tournaments and 2 finals, right? 2 semi-finals as well. 1 semi-final, 1 quarter-final. To go into that, 2 Euro finals, and 1 World Cup semi-final, 1 quarter-final, right?
Lost the penalty.
I think he did brilliant job, to be honest. It's not easy to win those tournaments. And imagine that the Euro final we could have won. It's just penalty. Against Italy. So like the guy says, be careful what you wish for. We may not even get into any quarterfinal in the World Cup, but I didn't see anything. I did not see anything.
I think the problem, Rohit, I think we've got with the qualifiers is, it's always been the case, is that that there's not much competitiveness in the qualifying stage.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Where compared to South America, obviously they're going to play Brazil. I think they played each other 4 times. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Argentina are going to play Brazil 4 times. I think it's 4 times. So it's a lot more competitive. And I'm not saying. Obviously you can say, well, there's been more European winners of the World Cup than there have been non-European winners. So it's the same for everyone. Yeah, that's true. But I'm just trying to say that. Yes, I think what Gareth brought was a brilliant culture to England. You always talk about culture, Rohit, in your line of work, and same here. It's obvious the players liked him. It's obvious the players played for him. The one thing that he couldn't do, he wasn't tactically astute enough or brave enough to just take it over the line. I think there are certain instances in certain games where someone who was braver would have done that. Now I don't know who that someone is going to be, to be honest, or is. Now I don't know if Tuchel's going to be the same, because managing tournament is very different to managing club, because he's got 6 weeks to kind of they're away from home.
The best out of
he's going to get that camaraderie, get the best out of them, and all that kind of stuff. And that's where Gareth was really good at. And as you said, that's the reason why he was knighted. He's Sir Gareth, because he did take England to 2 Euro finals, 1 semi-final, and I think 1 quarter-final in the World Cup as well.
But if you see, in the semi-final last Euros, he played in who's Aston Villa's striker?
Watkins.
Yeah. Ollie Watkins.
Let me say again. But if you remember, in the semi-finals against Holland, he brought in Watkins and he scored the winner. And that was a game-changing moment. When we talk about these tactics, that he is not clever enough, or he wasn't good enough to change the game in certain periods, or certain games in the finals and finals, he did that. You don't reach the finals without being good at what you do. and not consistently well in the tournaments. It's just hard. Sometimes luck, that's the thing I always call it.
Yeah. Sometimes you might get a favourable draw, but once you hit that,
you need luck.
Well, Harry Kane missed a penalty against France in the last World Cup quarter-final. When have you ever known Harry Kane to miss a penalty?
It's not
but look at
Gareth's fault.
But there are players that have obviously played in that semi-final and that are still playing in this squad, like the likes of Harry Kane. Even Declan Rice, I think, was in that squad as well. It's obviously our defense, and Jordan Pickford, obviously, as well. So there are some experiences with that, and I'm hoping that can then lead on to this Thomas Tuchel era, where they can hopefully grab, the World Cup. I know it's going to be difficult. I mean, since 1966, it's 2025. Sorry, 2020. Is it 2026? Isn't it? So it'd be nice, obviously, 60 years to kind of complete that, kind of turnaround. So 60 years of hurt. All the English fans are going to be saying. So it would be amazing if they could. And I think the squad looks good from the attacking. The only thing I would say is very it's like a Hammer kind of squad where it's very top heavy. There's a lot of strike force that we have. A lot of wingers, a lot of kind of ability there. But I'm a bit worried about the defense.
Defense. I think we are very short.
I mean, obviously Lewis Dunk, not the quickest. Attackers are going to go through him, but he's very physical. With the likes of Luke Shaw, if he had a good season, would he be, in that left back role? Because the left back is going to be a hard one, I think, for us. Obviously, Lewis Skelly's a left back, isn't he?
No, he's a midfielder, but makeshift left back. Yeah,
makeshift left back. And obviously with Conser, they've been thinking about that as well. Maybe, but that's what I didn't like, that we just don't have a very good left back. Right back, if Reece James is good, and even if Trent finds some form in Real Madrid. That'd be quite an interesting one. And then obviously the likes of Stones, and even if Maguire does well, he should definitely get a shout in. But the midfield, I think definitely the question's always going to be: is it Rice, Bellingham, or is it going to be Rice, Anderson, Bellingham a bit further forward, and then do you sacrifice your Foden, or
I think he has to.
You Saka, somebody. I think it depends on when it gets closer to the World Cup. We'll have a better understanding of the squad by the Premier League. How well the players have been playing for their respective clubs, and injuries. That's the key thing. As long as everyone stays fit, that's the key thing.
That's the key thing. But at the moment, I'm only worried about Arsenal at the moment. We'll worry about England.
Calafiori.
When the World Cup comes in, we'll worry about that. But for now, I hope all the Arsenal players who've been on international duty come back healthier, come back injury-free. Unfortunately, Gabriel and Calafiori. And Calafiori got injured. I'm very, very disappointed again, guys. This is why I didn't have a good Sunday, right? Arsenal and then India. I didn't have a good Sunday.
Get the magic sponge out. Back in the day, they used to get the magic sponge out on the pitch, and everyone used to be miraculously recovered from their life-threatening injury.
No, you need to get the black pepper and burn it in some paper or something, and go around the Emirates and walk around.
Do some mircha thing before
the Nazar, take the Nazar off.
Get a drone to go around 7 times.
That's it. I mean, from the United and City and Liverpool fans, I think we're all happy that Gabriel and Calafiori are injured and weakening Arsenal's chances, especially Alex and Tottenham. He must be delighted. But yeah, it's been a fantastic episode. It's been good debating, with the managers and also with international England doing, fantastically well. Let's hope they can continue that form into the the group stages and the knockout stages, and hopefully win the World Cup. So we'll be back reviewing, I think we'll be on match day 12. We'll be having some predictions. I'll be going to the Everton game, so any Old Trafford fans that do want to have a little chat, I'll be bringing my makeshift little mic with me, and we can get some interviews and get some reactions after the game. And hopefully if that United Strand guy is there as well, I would love to have an interview with him too, to get an idea on how he's feeling, and if we can do another 5 games in a row so he can get his hair cut. But yeah, please do like, comment, and please subscribe. And if you'd like to, ask us any questions or even get involved, then please do, get in touch with us. And we would love to hear from you guys. And until then, please do, like I said, follow, like, and subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.